What's up everyone, welcome to the channel. Football season's coming up and I came across this Yukon animated game day graphic. Throughout this video I'm going to show you how I started in Photoshop, created my graphic, brought it into After Effects and animated it, and then as well how I built it as a template so I can change the photos and reuse this graphic over and over again. It's a little bit of a longer video, so stick with me, but if you go step by step, I'm going to show you how I use my Photoshop files in After Effects to introduce motion graphics. Alright, we're back in Photoshop. So the key to this is going to be building our assets and our template all in Photoshop, and then we will animate it in After Effects after we do that. This graphic here is going to be our main image. I'm going to change it just a little bit, make it USA basketball, and we're going to have it say game day instead of one day, instead of the countdown. And then we're going to have this second graphic we're going to make with the game details and logos. So let's start it off with a new document and make sure that we're making it Instagram Reels size. So that's going to be 1080 by 1920, 1080 by 1920, tall graphic. First thing I want to do is get rid of the plain white background and make it an off-white. I'm going to do that by just adding a new layer, selecting our paint bucket tool, make sure that black is the selected color, popping it down, and bring the opacity down over here to 10. So all we've done is created that off-white. I'm going to show you how I save a ton of time on cutting out graphics, cutting out images for graphics. I have this plugin here called Remove BG, Remove Background, and it works in Photoshop. And what it does is one click cuts your images out. And 9 times out of 10, it's going to be perfect. Occasionally, you'll have a tough photo where you'll have to do a little extra cleanup. But you can see right there in just a couple seconds, cut my image out. But watch how I do this part. This is something I do for every graphic. I have my cutout graphic here, and I have the full image here. So what you're going to want to do is come over here to your layers, convert it to a smart object. Okay. Now the background image right here, we're going to do the same thing. Right click, convert to smart object. Now, holding shift, I click on both layers. Now they're both selected, and I'm going to push this chain. So that means anytime I move one layer, they both move in sync together. And then last part is I'm going to come down here, create a layer mask. Right now it's white, which means it's visible. Everything is visible. I'm going to push the white part and invert it with Control+I. And now I'm going to drag those into my working document. Now that seems like a long process to do a lot of nothing, but you'll see here in just a minute. I'm going to show you how to get perfect shadows using that background photo. So for now, I'm just going to leave that there. And I'm going to cut out this Austin Reeves photo, but I'm going to show you how, again, I'm just going to use the remove background and bring him in using the same process. I'm going to have Ant-Man kind of in the foreground with Reeves kind of in the background behind him. Give it a little bit of depth, kind of something like that probably. And it'll look better once we add text and stuff, but that's the thought. Reeves is kind of in the distance just a little bit, and Anthony is in the foreground. Now let's move straight into how we use these photos to, how we use the photos that we just cut out and placed in here, how we use those backgrounds to create the shadows. So first step, come over here and get your brush, scroll up to the top. We want hardness all the way down to 0. And now change the shape of this brush to make it flatter. We want a flat brush here. All right, now come over here to the top, lower the flow to somewhere around 15 to 20, and then bring your brush down here. And what I'm going to do is change the working color to white. And everywhere that I brush white on this black mask over here, it is going to bring back part of that original image. So if I were to do like this, and scroll, you can see it brings back all of it. But I'm just going to bring back only the parts that are under his feet that we're going to use as shadows. Now you can see I'm clicking, kind of hard to see. You can't really tell what's going on. So what do we need to do? Come down here to hue saturation. I want it to be a black shadow, so I'm going to bring the saturation down. But you can see that saturation has now made Reeves black and white. We don't want that. So to make this hue saturation only affect our shadows, we're going to come right click it and create clipping mask. So now our background photo is black and white, but nothing else is. Also still pretty light, so I want to darken that up with a levels. Now levels works with these little toolbars. You move these little levers on the toolbars, it's going to change the color of your shadows and your highlights. I want to darken this up a good bit, so I'm just going to bring this white one all the way over, and I'm going to once again create a clipping mask so it is only affecting here. And now you can see it looks much more like a shadow. Play with the settings. Every photo is going to be a little bit different until you get the darkness that you want your shadow to be. It's all personal preference. But I'm going to zoom in and brush this. That's too much. I'm going to zoom in, and I'm going to click multiple times. You want your shadows, remember you always want your shadows to be darkest at point of contact. So where his foot is completely touching the floor, I want that to be pretty dark. I'm just clicking, clicking, clicking. Now I'm going to make the brush a little bit bigger and expand this shadow, but I'm just going to do it one click at a time. I want it to like slowly fade out. Something kind of like that. And if you don't like what you have, you can just hit Command Z for the undo, or you can get your black brush and brush over it to erase it. Same thing over here. This foot is slightly off the ground, so I'm just going to brush a little bit, and something like that is pretty good. All right, now I like those adjustment layers. I can actually just select them, push Control J, and drag them down to the Austin Reeves picture, and I'm going to do the exact same thing. This is a trick to getting very good shadows on your graphics. Add some effects to these images using Camera Raw. We do that by going to Filter, Camera Raw. I always push Auto. Always push Auto just to see what it gives me. If I like it, I'll keep it. If I don't, it's gone. So I like that a lot. Brighten it up a little bit, good contrast. I like to have really sharp, crispy images for sports graphics. I think it makes it look kind of epic. I usually do masking pretty high and sharpening pretty high, and you can see before, after, just adds a lot of detail to it. I like that. Texture, I put that up almost all the way, almost all the time. And then clarity, the same thing. It'll mess your picture up sometimes depending on the photo, but it looks all right here. And I'm just going to lower the contrast a little bit, and dehaze. Little thing I like to do this on most. I bring the dehaze down, and then I bring the blacks down, and it gives it just a better looking contrast to me. There we go. Simple little Camera Raw. We went from this to this. So another trick, if you have two similar photos, the same Camera Raw may work. I want to try and keep things uniform where I can. So on this Camera Raw, pull it up a little bit. I'm going to hold Alt and drag where it actually says Camera Raw, drag and drop it onto the Austin Reeves picture, and we're done. That looks pretty good. So next thing I need to do is group these to where they stay together. I'm going to take this Anthony Edwards picture and select all the way down, and I'm going to right click, convert to smart object, and I'm going to change this to player 1. So what we have now is we have created a new document. If we double click layer 1, we can open up all that we just did, our shadows and everything. So if we ever needed to go back and fix anything, we could pull it up in there and make the changes. So I'm going to do the same thing with Austin Reeves here. Make sure all layers are selected, and then right click, convert to smart object. All right, next thing, let's add a background. All right, so next, let's add our background for Team USA graphic. I'm going to add a United States flag. Let's see. I'm going to add this background. It's going to be very subtle in the back. If we look at our reference image we have, they have the stadium there. So I'm going to put this in the background. Make sure you convert it to a smart object and then scale it down. We're going to want it to be somewhere right over their shoulders probably. Something like that will probably work pretty good. Now we got to get rid of the sky and fade that thing out. So since we made it a smart object, we can double click to open it up. And here's a pro tip: select sky. If you have a picture of the sky or anything like that, it'll save you a bunch of time. Now you can see though it missed this part here. You can quickly clean that up by coming to the toolbar, quick select tool, and then coming over here and pushing the one with the plus sign. So we're going to add to our selection and then hit create a mask. So we've cut it out, but it's got the wrong part cut out. We come over here, push Control I, and that inverts that mask. So now our smart object, we're going to close out, save it. Now that cutout flag is in our original graphic. So let's try and recreate this effect here. I'm going to start that process by lowering the opacity. So let's go to somewhere around 25 probably. That looks pretty good. And we'll rename this to background. Now we're going to want to mask it to where it's kind of faded on the edges. We can do that by pushing the layer mask button down here. Get your paintbrush tool. And let's fix the sizing where we created our shadows. And we still want hardness all the way down, flow really low. And we're going to get the black brush and just one click at a time. I'm going to brush on the bottom of this because I want it to have like a faded look. Where it's smooth, where it's very visible in the middle, and then slowly transitions out. No like real rough edges on the graphic. Something kind of like that. Something clean and simple. Maybe lower it just a little bit more. Okay. Now let's add our text. They have a big bold font right there. We'll just change it to game day instead of 1 day, instead of a countdown. Here's our logo, Team USA logo. I want to use that navy blue for my text. So if you push I, that brings up your eyedropper tool. Select your color. Now our working color should be that navy. We're going to push the shortcut key T for the text tool. And we're going to do something a little bit different since we are going to animate this text. I'm going to type in game. Now the font is Futura condensed, extra bold. I'm going to type in game, scale it a little bit. I want it to be pretty big text, maybe something like that. Now below, I duplicate that text layer, bring it down below, change it. I'm going to do one letter at a time on here. So I'm going to do D. I'm going to do A. Move it over. I'm going to duplicate, and I'm going to do Y. And I'm going to do that because of the way we're going to animate it. And it'll make sense as we get into After Effects. All right, now we need to add our logos to the top. So I've got my Team USA logo here. I'm going to bring it on top. I'm going to convert it to a smart object, change the name to Logo 1. Shrink that significantly. It's going to go up here to the top, something like that. And now I need a Nike logo. Okay, now let's add a line in the middle, red line, get my red color, line tool, hold shift to make it a straight line. There we go. So I'm going to selection, get these center aligned, put them in a folder as in top logos, and let's align this to our middle canvas here. Okay, and we are pretty much done. The last thing I'm going to do is just a little extra. I want to add some overall lighting to this whole graphic. So to do that, I'm going to make sure I am on my top layer. I go to exposure, create an exposure layer. I'm going to pull it down, make everything darker, and then the gamma correction, pull it up just a little bit. Now we're going to hide that by selecting this white box, Control I. Come down here again, same thing, exposure. Now this one is going to brighten everything up, pulling exposure up, but I'm also going to hide everything once again. So right now everything looks exactly the same, but I'm going to use the same masking trick to add some shadows and some general lighting. So I'm going to make this top right corner up here, this is going to be our lighting source. So pretend like our light is shooting down in this direction here, so that means our shadows are going to be casting this way. So let's get a brush, soft brush, same thing as always, lower it to maybe 15, just really low. But I've got it white brush, and one click at a time, I'm going to slowly darken up this left-hand corner and left-hand side of the graphic, because I want to kind of create a focal point, and I want it to look more realistic by having actual lighting going on in here. So I've darkened up the bottom left corner. Now I'm going to add my light source and brighten up the top right corner. One thing that I like to do that's probably not technically correct is I always like to make sure my faces are extra lit up. I want the faces to be most visible and a big priority. So now we'll add these lighting layers into a folder, and I'll show you. So here's the after, here's the before. After, before, and it just adds a whole lot of depth, and it takes the graphic to a whole nother level when you've got that lighting going on. It gives you a better focal point, draws your eyes straight to the game day and the player. That is our first graphic. That is our animation cover template. Okay, now the next step, we need to recreate this just game day information slides. This is going to take 5 minutes. So we're going to also go to File, New, make sure we are on 1080, 1920 height. And all I'm going to do is come into our other graphic. I'm going to copy our off-white background. I'm going to copy our lighting layer. Boom, there we go. We've got the same exact setup. Now let's just add some basic text. We'll do game day. Simple enough. Now let's just add 2 logos. Let's say we've got Team USA versus Team Canada. There it is. So we've got just a simple slide to match this. And now let's make sure we go to File, Save As, and we'll do it under, we'll call it Animated Game Details. So the main part is done. The design work is done. Now it just comes down to animating it in After Effects. So let's open up After Effects. So a lot of you guys have probably never used After Effects. I don't know. Maybe you have. But I know I never used After Effects for a long time after I started using Photoshop. But they are different, but they do have a lot of similarities. So let's go ahead and go New Project, New Composition. Most important thing here, we'll do this Animated Game Day Template. The most important thing here, though, is you want this to be the same dimensions as your design that we just made in Photoshop. So it needs to be 1080 by 1920, and it's going to be very short, 8-second video. You can change that there. Okay. All right. Now we've got it started. So this down here is going to be our timeline. This is going to be where our graphics go. So let's import our PSD files. File, import. First thing we want to do is animated cover template. Bring it in. Let it load. Now it's very important here. Let's do composition, retain layer styles, editable layer styles. Click OK. So there we have our graphic. All right. Now we want to do the same thing with our details. And we can double click it, bring it in the same settings. Okay, so now let's get to work on animating this graphic. So first things first, let's come to our cover. Let's drag and drop it down below in our timeline. So here we have our timeline. If you push play, it'll preview what you have. So right now we have absolutely nothing animated. But what we need to do is double click this and it's going to pull up our PSD file. So all of our layers that we created in Photoshop are now in After Effects in the same order. Pretty cool. So similar to Photoshop with layers and all that, and you can change the layer modes, but a lot more variables, a lot more things that you can do. So let's start. We want to start by adding a camera. We're going to need a camera to get the effects. Let's go to Layer, New, Camera. Here on our camera settings, I usually just leave it on this one, 24 millimeters, enable depth of field. Lock to zoom, click OK. All right. So that basically was just saying that that camera is not going to affect 2D layers at all. So we have to create 3D layers. So a couple things, the background and our off-white background, we are not going to worry about making it 3D, but everything else will pretty much be 3D. So you can do that by coming down here and just clicking all of them. If you do not see that, you can switch this toggle switches mode until it comes up. Now, couple of things. This little icon here means these are not 3D. Now what we need to do is turn off the layer styles, and now it will become 3D. So if you see that on any of your layers, that's how you change it. But we need to change our views. So we need to create a second view. Now, over here, you can click this box. If yours doesn't already look like this, you can click this window, come here, and you can change it to any view that you want. In this instance, we need top. So this is showing us, this is the view from the camera looking over the top of it. This right one is our active camera, which is what we're actually creating. So we're on our camera. We have our camera view here. We have our graphics here. And let's just kind of show you how it looks. So if you grab here and pull back, you can see the camera is changing the view of what we can actually see on our graphic. And all that stuff that is 3D now moves with it, okay? So our first step is going to be selecting the point where we want it to kind of stop. This is the end point. This is where I want the movement to slow down to where you can see it. This scale, this position. So I'm going to open up my camera and I'm going to create keyframes at 1 second of all these positions right here. And I'm actually going to go ahead and do the same thing right here. And this is definitely not what you have to do, but this is the way I've gotten used to doing it. We need to work backwards. Pull our timeline back to the 0 mark and think about where do we want this to start. So we want the camera to zoom out like it's coming from behind the players. So I'm going to come in here and change the position of this and zoom until we are past the players. So you can see we're zooming, zooming, zooming. Now we are past the players, and I'm going to move just a little bit further right here to the end of the canvas. We can preview what we just did by pushing the space bar, and you see boom. So we're zooming from behind the players until we get back to them in focus. Now on our reference video, they had a slight turn and a blur. So let's work on that rotation first. I'm going to put it right here so I can kind of see how much it's rotating. I'm going to work on the Z rotation here. And let's just try it at maybe like 7. And I'm going to pull this keyframe back to the beginning. So now that keyframe is going to go from 7 all the way down to 0, which is where our original graphic stops at 1 second. See, that's probably not enough. So I can just come over here and I'm going to type in 15. Let's double it. There we go. It's got a slight rotation in it. And we're zooming out to get our players in focus. Now let's work on the blur. So I'm going to get it right here where I can still see what's going on. I'll put the quality on full for you guys. And our depth of field is on, and blur level, we can just play with these settings here. Turn the blur level up, focus distance. We can change that, kind of see what we get. And I'm just going to play with these settings and see what it gets us. So let's start right there. Something really blurry. I'm going to click and drag these keyframes to the beginning so that it'll go from really blurry to in focus by 1 second. Okay, now I'm going to animate our game day. I've got the camera coming from behind the players, shooting to them in focus at 1 second. I want by 2 seconds my game day to be where it's at now. So I want my game day to be set. So I want it to be camera coming out, focusing, spinning, players are there, game day pops up. We want this to be sequential. So it's all going to start with the game. Remember, we created, in the PSD, we created a D layer, A layer, a Y layer. On this game layer, I am going to go to 2 seconds. My timeline is on 2 seconds. I'm going to go to Layer, New, Shape Layer. Now what we do is we create a layer, and I want it to be over the top of game, and I'm going to drag it until it's behind the shoulders of our 2 players. All right, looks terrible right now, but I can hide that. If you click on Game here, toggle our modes, and we're going to put a track mat on that Shape 1 layer. So what that's going to do is that game text is only going to be visible when it's inside of that shape layer that we just created. So with that being said, come down here to transform and position. I'm going to create, I always like to work backwards in After Effects. So I go to wherever I want my ending point to be. I want the game text to end right here. So I'm going to push the position keyframe, and I'm going to go back here to maybe 1 second, and we'll play with that and see where it needs to be. But then I can just drag this game until it goes behind where that shape layer was, and if we play it, you'll see it looks like it's coming up from behind our players. And that's probably a lot slower than what I'm thinking. I want this to be punchy. So we can just push play, boom. All right, so that's way too slow. So we'll have this come almost immediately after, and maybe we'll do the shortcut key for next frame is page up and page down. So we'll just make that 5 frames, and let's see what we're looking at. There we go. That's fast, to the point. I like that. Add a little motion blur to it. There we go. Okay. Now I'm going to get the A layer, and I'm going to do the same exact thing that I just did, except it's going to come a few frames after. So let's go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Open up our A. Go to transformation, position, and work backwards from there. And then we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So as soon as the game text is up, the A text is following. And I can just zoom in here, and I can pull the position of this down. Oh, forgot a step. You have to make it a track mat shape layer 1. There we go. So let's zoom out. We'll do one view for now. Play it one more time. Boom, boom. All right. G, and then the A follows immediately. All right, now I want the D to come in from the left side and get back to next to the A, and I want the Y to come in from the right side. So I'm going to have that work at the same exact time. It's going to be sequential. So we'll move our timeline to the same place where we started with our A movement, and we'll do Y first. Open it up, transform, and we're going to go to our ending point, actually. I always start where we want to end at. I think it's a lot easier to work backwards in After Effects. All right, there's D. And our ending position is right where we are at now. Position, keyframe, position, keyframe. Now let's go back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frames. The Y is going to come from off the page over here. The D is going to come from off the page over here. So just drag it. Okay, now we can pull it back. Game day. That might be a little too fast, so I'm going to add just a couple of frames to that on all three of these. There we go. And I'm going to add a little bit of a motion blur to all three of those as well. I just like the way that looks. That's personal preference. Okay, now we have our intro with our game day text animation coming in. So let's add our simple logo animation. We've got our top logo layer here. I'm going to have it start at the 1 second, so I'm going to move it ahead 1, 2, 3, 4 frames. And I'm going to keyframe all of these and then go back to 1 second and scale it to 0. So let's check it out up here. Just a quick, simple pop in. So now we have everything animating in, flying in and animating in. Boom, boom, game day. Next step is going to be to have the movement never stop. So right now it just goes to here, and that's where we're at. So I want to have it slowly move just a little bit as you're reading the game day text, and right before it flies through, I want to have just little subtle movements. So I'm going to go to 3 seconds, and I'm going to move back about 6 keyframes. Let's add a little bit of rotation, the opposite direction that we had before. So we'll do -2. So we started off at 15, so it's going from left to right, and then it rotates the other way slowly. Now we're going to have it go, the camera's going to zoom through these guys here in a minute. So let's have it where it's going the opposite direction and pull it in just a little bit. So let's play that and see what we're looking like. There you go. So it never stops, and it's just little subtle movements just to keep it moving, keep it fun. So let's do our zoom through effect now. We'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now I'm going to pull back up our 2-view camera and move this over here. And I'm going to take this camera and zoom all the way through really fast. So let's see how that looks. All right, let's play it from the jump and see what we were looking at. Game day. Boom. Flies through. Let's watch it again. All right, cool. So we're going to add some more to that. I want it to blur. Right here, let's just come down here, add more keyframes so we're not blurry yet. And then as we zoom through, it's going to blur a lot. We want to be going really fast. So let's just turn that blur level up to like 300. And let's see how that reacts to it. Yeah. That does a lot. Let's change our focus distance to way back here. Or way up here. Let's play that back, see what we're looking at. Choom. That's a really fast blur right there. That's kind of what we're looking for. So let's play from the beginning, and this is constant process here. All right, let's double check, make sure we don't see any errors. Looks clean, looks clean. Perfect. One more time. Game day. All right, now this is the part where we want our details to all pop up. So we're not going to mess around with the 3D as much here. We have our zoom effect, and let's go to page down until it ends. Boom, right there we want our game day details to come up. We can go ahead and add it right here. I'm going to open it up and get rid of a couple things. We don't need the background anymore. We don't need the lighting layer, any of that. Now, a couple things. I'm going to convert this to go to create, convert to editable text. Same thing here. Tonight, I'm going to go to convert, create, convert to editable text. So let's start with tune in. I'm going to go in here and add one of the After Effects presets. So you go to effects over here, animation presets, text, and there's a whole list of drag and drop presets that you can use. I'm going to go to animate in, and decoder is probably my favorite. It'll work perfect for this. Decoder fade in. So if you click play now, you can see it does that and gets your letters up. That's way too slow for us though. So let's go to transform text and pull down all these windows, and you'll see these keyframes here are what we're going to need to tighten up to make this effect go a lot faster. So it'll go from this to that. That's what we're looking for. So let's get it. We want it to start right. There. All right. So that's kind of what we're looking at right there. We can move this over. Let's move it over 1, 2, 3 frames, and it'll start and come up. Okay, and you'll see why we'll do that in a second. Now tonight, I'm going to do the same thing that we did with game day. I'm going to have it come from right up under our tune in text. So we zoom in, we go to layer, new, shape layer, create the shape just over where our text is at. Let's hide it. Let's make track matte. Let's change that to shape layer 1. And then we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Transform position. Remember, this is where we wanted to end up, so that's where we're going to start. And now we're going to work backwards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to have it come from there. So let's play that. Boom. So our decoder fade in. Tonight time drops. And now we're going to do the same thing with the logos that we did with the D, the A, and the Y. Let's go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's start with verses, transform, just a simple pop in, keyframe all of those, and then go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 backwards. Change the scale to 0. Boom. So it's just going to pop in simple animation. Now let's do a team 1 and team 2. We're going to go position and position. So I'm going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. USA is going to come off from this side of the screen. Canada is going to come on from this side of the screen. So let's take a look. Decoder, drop down, slide in. So it's really fast. But that's what we want it to be. We want it to be punchy. So let's take it from the beginning. Let's save it so we don't lose any progress. We can get rid of our 2 views for now. Okay, let's take a look at where we're at. Hold on, it lagged on us. Let's view it again. Boom, right into our information. Now, last part, we're gonna have a little bit more camera, little bit more movement, but this time it's not with the camera actually. So we're gonna have our information is here. You can read it. Now, the last part, we're gonna have this, and the game details are gonna move just a little bit. So I'm going to add, for right here, we're going to add our original keyframes. This is everything straight on. Now right here, let's add a little bit of rotation. We can go to -2, not too much. Let's turn the scale up just a little bit. And then right here at 6.5 maybe, let's try here. We'll go to -1 and we'll go to there. Now let's see how that little bit of movement works. So I don't like that. So let's just keep it all going in one direction and drag it out. At 7 seconds, we're going to have another zoom through. So let's go here. Just slight movement, and we can increase it just a little bit more than what we've got. We can go to -4 and maybe 110. So let's watch it back. All right, that's not bad. Now let's have it zoom through. We'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we'll just have it scale all the way up like that. Get off of our screen. So let's play that out. Boom. Okay, we have got all of our animation and camera work done. Now let's add our finishing touches. We need to add some stock video for effects and some sound effects. So let me just drag and drop all that and get this thing done. Alright, so that's how I created the design. That's how I animated the design. Now, this last part, really quick, show you how easy it is to just edit our Photoshop files and get a completely different graphic, animated graphic. Show you how, once you have this built, and if you build it the right way, you can just reuse it for multiple purposes. So let's go. Okay, I know this has been a long one, but for the last part of this, I'm going to show you how all that we just did is now a template and how we can easily change it and turn it into something else. So let's go back into Photoshop and open up our PSDs. I'm going to go through and do this as quickly as I can. Player 1, we're going to take player 1 and let's put Geno Smith in there at the player 1. So I'm going to come in here. We'll fast forward through this part. Now I've added the photo, added the shadows. You just exit out. Make sure that you click yes to save. And now we've got him in here. You can see there's before and the after. Now let's do the same thing, player 2. Double click to open it up. Hide all of this. And let's add DK Metcalf. And I'll cut it out and add our shadows. All right, added. Exit out and save. Let's look at our template here. Now I just need to adjust the size of him. He's really big. So let's put him, remember we want him kind of in the background where Geno's kind of up front. Something like that. Let's adjust our background image. We'll come down here to background. Double click, we have our American flag. And now I want to add the Seahawks Stadium. I'm going to drag and drop that. I need to convert it to a smart object. And let's expand it here. Now exit out, save. And there it is in our original document. Now you're going to have to edit this mask so you can see the parts. Every photo is going to be different depending on what you use. So delete that mask and then create a new one. And get your brush. Make sure the hardness is on 0 and the flow is low, and just kind of brush back in the areas that you want to see the stadium. And you're just going to have to play with it a little bit. Something like that is kind of what I'm thinking. We'll hide this. Get rid of all the hard edges. You want it to be subtle in the background. And now I'll come up here. We'll keep the Nike logo, but we need to change the USA Basketball logo 1. We're going to get a Seahawks logo. Drag and drop your logo here. Hide that one. Exit out and save. Now we're talking. So you can see I need to increase the size a little bit. And I want to change my line there to our green. We'll come up to fill, eyedropper tool. Let's get the neon green. There we go. And if you need to, you can come in here and change your text colors. All right. So now the next step is make sure you save this. Go to File, Save As, Animation Cover Template. Okay. So let's go into here, and all you need to worry about on here is our logo. So if you need to change your logos, go ahead and do that. We'll change it to Seahawks. Get rid of USA, just hide it, exit out and save. And I want to make it a little bit larger. And then let's say they're playing a different team. We'll get a Chiefs. Drag and drop my logo, cut out my white. All right. Make sure you exit out and save. And now we've got two logos here. I'm just going to scale it about right there. Okay, we're going to do the same thing. Make sure you go to File, Save As, Animated Game Details. So let's go back into After Effects. Okay, we're in After Effects. Let's open our previous project that we created, Animated Game Day Template. Move our timeline to where we can see it. Boom, there you go. So you can see just by changing the PSD, we have changed our animated graphic and got brand new players, brand new background, brand new logo in there. Now the only thing that you might need to edit is you can change these game details, and we made that an editable text layer originally. So all you'll do is you'll come in here to, we created the animated game details layer, double click that. We'll come in here, get your text tool from up top. And then let's go Sunday, 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. Who knows? Okay, and if we want to change the line here, we'll select it. We'll get our eyedropper tool, and let's get that neon green color from the logo. Okay, so that is changed. Now the one thing you'll notice is I resized the logo, so they are just a little bit off. If you want to do this without messing up your motion, make sure you come here to where this keyframe ends, and Team 2 is on top of the verses. My timeline is here where the keyframe ends. I'm just going to move it right there. And if I wanted to do the same thing with Team 1, if I had to, I would just scoot it over just slightly. Now, if you go back, you can see, boom, it is all saved. So let's go back from the beginning. Alright, that's it. Thanks for watching, you guys. Hope you guys were able to learn from this. Hopefully you can start introducing After Effects into your Photoshop designs. If you're interested, the template for this video is available on basportdesigns.com, as well as hundreds of other templates. If you like this video, please like it, please subscribe, and comment below for what you think the next video should be. See ya.